Hey, everybody. Welcome to the GMI Rocket Show. Today is a super special episode because it is episode 100 of the show. So crazy to think about. I remember my very first episode where I didn't know what I was doing or how to say the introduction to the show. And 100 episodes later, I'm so grateful to all the amazing individuals that have come onto the show and everybody who's been listening so far. I'm your host, Roman Zelchenko. I'm a former immigration attorney turned entrepreneur. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Laborless, which is a tech startup that automates H-1B visa compliance, and also the founder of GMI Rocket, which is a digital marketing agency for the immigration mobility industry, and of course, which brings you this show. So today, on our very special episode 100, our guest today is Britt Vergnolle, who is the co-founder and CEO of a company called BDV Solutions. They are a really interesting player in the immigration space that have focused for a number of years on EB-3 unskilled worker visas. So they help immigrants, individuals coming into the U.S. find positions under the EB-3 visa with different employers around the country. So we're going to get into that. We haven't really talked about this kind of business and this visa category. We did have a guest a while back focused on the H-2A visa for farms, for farm workers. So EB-3 unskilled is really fascinating. So I'm really excited to get into this episode with Britt. Before we jump in, I do want to say thank you to the main sponsor of this episode, which is Lex Reception. So Lex Reception, for all you immigration attorneys out there, is a legal intake, reception, and client support service. They answer phone calls for you and messages in real time. They schedule appointments for you, and they're 24/7. So they work with immigration law firms around the clock. They have legal answering specialists so that you don't have to worry about somebody missing a phone call, your firm missing a phone call or an email from a client ever again. They also will reach out to prospects for you who filled out a form on your website. They integrate with platforms like Clio, Practice Panther, LawPay, and others. And for GMI Rocket Show listeners, Lex Reception is offering $250 off your first month of service with them. If you're interested, check out the link in the show description or reach out to Lex Reception and tell them you heard about them from the GMI Rocket Show. Okay, really long intro, but very excited for this episode. Britt, thank you so much for being here. I'm so pumped. I've been following you and your company for a while. This is the 100th episode. Everything came together perfectly, so I'm excited to talk to you and share your story with all the listeners.
What an accomplishment, Roman. That's awesome. 100 episodes. That's great.
Thank you. I was chatting with somebody because I posted about this on social media and I said, I'm so excited about the 100th episode. And honestly, I'll go on my YouTube channel sometimes and I'll scroll through and I see all these faces of people that have spoken to me. And I'm so grateful to them, for giving me like an hour plus, because there's a little bit of prep for their time. I'm so grateful, to you for doing the same. And I maybe even be more proud of this than the actual businesses that I've started, just because I don't know, this feels like so personal. But anyway, that's another conversation.
It's just a great way to connect, and it's just so easy to do. I mean, before you have to bring in crews, so this venue is a really cool way to meet people, share stories. I think it's fantastic.
Unbelievable. Yeah, totally agree. Thank God for technology, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So, but today's episode is about you, not about me or the show. So you're based in South Carolina, and you are right now. We're going to get into the story of how BDV was started and like what the company did and continues to do, and then we'll talk a little bit about, of course, how you ended up exiting the company and just all of the really interesting things that the business has been doing since, from kind of an M&A perspective, which is it's still fairly rare in our industry. And I think even when it does happen, it's not often spoken about. So, I'm looking forward to learning quite a lot in this conversation. But let's start further back. So, you're based in South Carolina. We were chatting a little bit before we started recording about your last name, Vergnolle, which is your husband's last name. Your last name is Davis, I guess, right? Your maiden name?
Yes, my maiden name is Davis, yeah.
So we were chatting a little bit about kind of immigrant histories. Share a little with the Vergnolle. So it is a French name. Vergnolle.
Yeah.
Is that?
Oh, yes. If we were in France, it would be spoken very beautifully with a beautiful accent, and I hate to even try it in a
horrible. It's yours. Try it.
Oh gosh, it's not. Vergnolle. It's
Okay.
so pretty when we go to France and
Yeah.
visit relatives. But yeah, so we have a very, very close immigrant story of my husband Ronnie's grandfather was a chef on a French ship and merchant ship, came into the New York City harbor in the 1920s. He won a wrestling match on the boat to be able to earn the right to go into the city for the day. He went into the city, and the story goes, the lore, it goes, he got to First Avenue. He's like, wow, this is pretty cool. Second, got to third. He's like, forget it. I ain't going back. I'm staying. So he went AWOL from the ship, ended up becoming a sous chef at the Waldorf Astoria because he was a chef on that ship. So he did that for several years, met his wife, my grandmother, my husband's grandmother, who I was very close with, who was French Canadian and that was a nanny in that area near Waldorf Astoria
Wow.
for a very wealthy family. Met them because all these French people were hanging out in the city at that time. And then the French government came looking for him. And so we've talked to some French people that have said, oh, yeah, the chef disappears from a ship. We're looking for the chef.
Right.
And so he ended up going down to Florida, which back then, no air conditioning, was still pretty swampland. Went to Jacksonville, Florida, and opened up a restaurant there, and had a very successful
Wow.
restaurant in downtown Jacksonville there called the Dolphin that he and his wife ran. Probably some of the first French food ever served in Florida at that point. And then he did go back to France one time to get his paperwork figured out and worked out. It was a lot easier back then to do that.
Yeah.
And then came back. But so we have
Wow.
now reconnected with all of his family in France in the Dordogne region. So we're close to all the family there. But it's a great immigrant story of someone came to New York City and said, man, I'm going to try to make it here. And he did. And he was a very
Wow.
successful restaurateur in Florida.
And so he was actually supposed to be on the ship back to France. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, they were just
Wow.
coming in delivering goods, and he was
Yeah.
supposed to be
Right.
headed back. But he won the wrestling match on the ship and said, got in the city. He's like, I'm staying here in the land of freedom.
And you said this was in the 1920s?
Yeah. Hmm.
Wow, unbelievable. That's so
And
cool.
it's a cool story.
And thinking about how immigration is now, I mean, that would never fly,
Oh,
and
no way.
when you said that he went back to France to get his paperwork, my initial thought was, well, did they seize him at the border for, not
Right.
coming back on the ship? But I guess back then it just, communication wasn't as fast, obviously. Maybe nobody knew. I mean, who knows? But
Yeah. Yeah.
um, that's brave. I actually, thinking back on that, I would be nervous to go back to France. I'd say, you know what,
I know.
screw
It
it.
was brave.
I'm staying. Yeah.
It was brave. It
So
was brave.
wow, that's so cool.
But maybe that's
Um,
where our, I think about that story, and that's kind of the start of our entrepreneurship DNA in my family
Absolutely.
with my husband and I starting this business.
Abs
But it takes guts and just you see something, go for it, right?
That's right. And then, in the beginning, and we'll get to this, but the beginning is not easy. The beginning is very,
No.
it's risky. It's you're usually burning money. You're not necessarily making it right off the bat. It's and if you have a
Yeah.
family or just other responsibilities, it's tough. So okay, so that was on your husband's side. You grew up, your family's been in South Carolina for quite some time on your side of the family.
Oh yeah, we're South Carolina for a very, very long time. We've got a my on my dad's side we still have the King's Grant certificate from King's Grant land where they were in part of South Carolina and farming. So they were no aristocrats, plantation owners. They were just farmers in South Carolina, and so we've been here for a very long time.
Wow.
And I love this
And
state.
I've never been to South Carolina.
Oh,
I've been to
come
North
visit
Carolina.
us.
I know, I know. I really should. I have some contacts and friends down there, but it's people love it. I mean, I hear such great
Yeah.
things. Okay, so you grew up in South Carolina. Out of curiosity, I know you had a sort of different career path, which we'll get into a little bit before you got into, I suppose, the immigration space. But were you sort of an entrepreneurial kid? Were you kind of? I like to ask guests, were you sort of the lemonade stand kid or paper route kid, sort of, or was it more so studies based?
Maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
not studies based.
Okay.
I was not that kid, but I wasn't the kid that was always trying to start a business. But I think I was a leader. I was always, I was the president of my student class in my Camden High School, in a small town in the middle of the state, Camden, South Carolina, a very old historic city. But I was president of the class. I was, involved in everything, and I always tried everything. My mother used to always make fun of me. I would try one sport, I'd get pretty good, and I was like, okay, I learned that. I'm gonna go do something else. I was just
Mm.
curious, always wanting to learn and succeed. She tells a funny story about the first time she took me snow skiing. I was so aggravated because I couldn't ski, because she said, you tried something, you want to be able to do it and do it well. So she said, politely, you just fell on your face and you screamed as loud as you could, but it was muffled by the snow. And just, she said, you stood up and she said, honey, you're going to take time to do this. And you're like, I don't want to take time. I'm going to go out the hill and I'm going to do it. And she said, it scared her to death. And she said, I did it. I fell the whole way. And I just got up and kept doing it again. And I think about that story, and I'm just kind of thinking about it right now. And I've never thought about this analogy, but it's truly that entrepreneurial spirit. I wasn't trying to sell something. I was trying to figure something out, and I wanted to do it. And I want to do it well. I don't have to be, make a lot of money or get a lot of fame, fortune, or anything. I just curious, and I want to try new things and do new things and things that I'm passionate about.
I can totally.
And I'm going to scream in the snow when I'm getting aggravated.
That's right. You got to take you have to take the emotions out and then move forward. I was watching tennis this morning, and that happens. Tennis players they're out there alone, right? If it's a singles match, and so when you get frustrated, you just yell. You kind of let it out, and then you regroup and keep going and figure out what you're doing wrong. And I also very much relate to what you're saying. I feel like when I was practicing immigration law, I only practiced law for about 2 years, just under 2 years. And of course, by no means was I an expert at all. I mean, I maybe knew a little bit about one thing, right? But I understood what it meant to be an immigration lawyer. And a little part of my brain was like, great, got it. Do I want to continue to do this and get better and much more, knowledgeable? Or do I want to sort of take this and tweak it and do something new and learn something else in my life? So I feel like I can relate to that idea of, yep, got it. Let's move on and learn. Let's have a whole different, view on life, and can continue that moving forward.
Kind of keep challenging yourself and creating new chapters. And that's kind of where I am in my life right now. I mean, I'm kind of, I'm going to write my next chapter because, as you know, I'm kind of transitioning right now out of this role into another role and seeing what else is out there. But it's that constant challenge and curiosity.
All right. So you went to College of Charleston. You majored in communications, and I was looking at your LinkedIn profile. Your first job that you have listed there is a personal assistant on The Late Show with David Letterman. How cool was that? Can you talk a little bit about? Cool. Because that was during, I guess, college. Is that right? Was that during?
So I took a semester. Yeah. So this is before people used to do, study abroad semester and everything. People would do internships, but never really like leaving school. And I kind of created it, and I just did it. And so I took a semester off of school, went and lived in New York City and worked for David Letterman. And it was the first year he had his personal intern. So I was his personal intern and worked directly with he and his personal assistant. But, wow, what a time for me. I was 20 years old and living in New York City and driving his car around, meeting stars, working on the show, working in production, getting things ready, just, personal assistant things, but had just a fantastic time and what time of growth and building confidence and like, yeah, I can do this. I can do this.
How, you're, I'm assuming, you were a leader or something in school and college, just based on what you're sharing, et cetera. But how did you kind of a small town, if you will, South Carolina girl get that job? I mean, that sounds like
Roman, I wish I could tell you that it was my leadership. I wish I could tell you it was my grades and my connections. But what it was, I looked like somebody that David Letterman liked. And that is the truth. He had so you never know. You just never know. He had a front desk receptionist. Her name was Louise, and he really, really liked her. And she was leaving. She was getting married, and she was leaving. And he saw me walk down the hall with the HR director because I was not even there to It was not even there to interview for the David Letterman position. I was there to interview for NBC Nightly News to be an intern there. And he saw me in the hallways and he said, "Who the hell are you?" I mean, he doesn't talk to anybody in the hallways. And I just put out my hand and I said, "Hi, I'm Britt. I'm going to be your next intern." He's like, "No,
No
seriously,
way.
I'm serious." He said, "No, seriously, who the hell are you?" And I said, "I'm Britt. I'm going to be your next intern." He said, "Do you drive stick shift?" I said, "Yes." "No, I do not drive stick shift." Never drove stick shift in my life. So, and I said, "Yes." He said, "Can you be here in 2 weeks?" I said, "Yes." How am I going to? I don't have a place to live. I still in school. I mean, what am I going to do? So the HR director was like, "Oh my gosh, I've worked here for 15 years. He's never spoken to me. I come to this office all the time. I cannot believe he just stopped in the hallway to talk to you." But it was because, so we go into his assistant's office, and she goes in the office with Dave. She comes back and said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I left out a big part." I said, and then he said, "You look like Louisa. She's leaving me, and I'm really pissed off, and I can't believe she's leaving me, and you look just like her." And I said, she must be a great gal." He's like, "You don't know her." And he's like, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from South Carolina." And he said, and I said, "Well, she looks like me. She's got to be okay. We're good,"
Yeah.
because he's kind of laughing.
Yeah.
So he said, "Yeah, the intern that he hired, he wants to let go of her. She was from Harvard
Uh-huh.
and hired me from College of Charleston."
Wow. Wow.
Luck, 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 luck. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And he called me Louisa for the first 2 weeks that I worked there for him. He did
Okay.
not call me by my real name until I bought him some really good Cuban cigars. And he said, "Britt, this is going to work out."
Wow. That's so great. Listen,
I know.
yes, you can chalk it up to luck. Definitely. So many things there fell into place. But nevertheless, you were in New York. You made your luck, right? You came to New York City.
Yeah.
You took that semester off. You went for a job in a well-known corporation doing something totally different from, I presume, maybe what a lot of your classmates were doing at that time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So what a great story. Wow. Did you ever want to, I mean, that feels like it's like a dream scenario. Did you ever want to stay and maybe come back after you
Well, yeah,
graduated?
they
Did that
wanted me to
cross your
stay.
mind? Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
they wanted me to stay. They were like, "Yes, stay." And I said, "I've got to go graduate from college. My parents are going to kill me. And
Right.
I just got one more year." I was just like my junior year. I said, "I've got one more year. I got to go back and graduate." And so, yeah, I do sometimes think about, what if I stayed? What if it was like at the end of my college career? But I don't think about it too long because I don't have any regrets. I'm so happy where I am
Of
right now,
course.
and where my path has taken me. But yeah, I would have lived a totally, totally different life than I'm living down here in
Yeah.
South Carolina right now.
Yes, that's right. You would have been
But it was,
like
yeah.
Soho living, college graduate, New York City. Well, David Letterman, if you're listening to this, you have a great new show on Netflix. You should have Britt on that show.
Oh, yeah. That
Um,
was so much fun. I had a great time.
yeah, that's wonderful. So, okay, so you came back from that experience. You obviously graduated eventually, and you kind of went into doing the kind of work that sort of not the glamorous New York City stuff, but doing work in the kind of PR advertising space for some
Right.
time. Um, you know, I know eventually you went on to do work in the kind of immigration space, but what was it about? Was there anything that you pulled from early days in your career that eventually led you to getting into this immigration space? Like, how did this sort of track? You know?
Yeah, my first career in marketing, PR, and I was working with lots of different companies. So those skills that I learned working in a one of the largest firms in South Carolina at the time, um, in PR, marketing, advertising, are skills that you could use with any industry. And actually, I worked in lots of different, and I had lots of different clients, industries, doing that. So those skills I definitely even use today that I learned and made me curious about marketing, and changed a lot since then. But the mid 1990s. But yeah, so those skills I carried on. But how I got into immigration was just through my marriage. My husband graduated from Duke Law School and got an LLM in international law, specializing in Chinese and Russian law.
Mhm.
Like you, he worked in the law firm for 2 years. So he worked in D.C. for Secretary James State Baker had just came out of the White House. So he worked for James Baker and Baker and Botts, and he worked in their D.C. office, and he hated it. He was like, "I want to be on the other side of the table."
Hmm.
And I think we both, and what's worked so well in our marriage and our partnership and our business partnerships is that we kind of, there's an entrepreneurial spirit that you're born with. Many people, I don't think, can be taught. I see these entrepreneurship courses and things. I was like, God, how do you learn to be an entrepreneur? Because it's something in your gut. Many times you can learn stories and that, and learn from people's mistakes and things. But I think it started. We saw that from very early on when we started our careers. That he was a lawyer for 2 years, and he's like, man, I want to be on the other side of that table, not on this side of this conference room table. So we got married. He quit his job. We moved to South Carolina, and he was looking for a job in kind of international law and things like that. And he worked with a company with a small law firm in Charleston, and they were starting to do EB-5. So he was doing EB-5 work. He was also writing laws for. He's doing a lot of transactional laws things, writing laws for the Grenadines and their tax havens and things. So he has a lot of transactional things like that with his LLM degree, his master's in international law. So when we got married and we moved to Charleston, I started my own firm called Verg LLC, and I was doing some. My old company gave me some accounts in Charleston that they wanted me to help with, and then I just grew a small business there doing PR, special events, mainly special events. Charleston's a big special events place, planning, and then and he was working for this company doing EB-5, so he was introduced to that. Then he left them, and we started our own company. And we were doing international deals. We were doing joint venture deals in China. So when you went to China back in those days, you couldn't just go to China and open up a business. You need to have a local joint venture with that. So we were doing this transnational transactions. So we were taking companies, several from Charleston, some from Orlando, from the Southeast, and taking them into China. I just kind of learned because we just started this business together. So it was my husband with all this immigration knowledge, background, and legal work. And then we just started working together and doing that. And during that time, we actually brought the first wholly owned Chinese company ever to America. We brought Haier, Haier. We brought them to America, and they built the first wholly owned Chinese company to ever build a manufacturing plant in America. It's called Haier. They're from Qingdao, China. And we brought them to Camden, South Carolina, my hometown. In South Carolina, and that's a crazy story. We met them in China, in Qingdao. We were talking to some of their executives about EB-5 and some EB-5 deals that we were repping and finding investors for. And they said, "Hey, we're about to move to America. We're going to Connecticut." And no shade on Connecticut, but we're like, "Why are you moving to Connecticut? Do you know they have the unions and the taxes and all that? You need to move to South Carolina. I mean, we're selling our state." And they're like, "Oh, tell us about South Carolina." We're like, "Well, BMW just made their headquarters in Greenville, South Carolina. Michelin is there. They do great tax incentives for you. Your taxes are low, no unions. South Carolina is a place to build new manufacturing. You should consider this." Like, "Oh, tell us about it." So we got them to leave Connecticut and come to South Carolina. So we're proud of that. And they've grown, and now Haier has bought. Haier has grown exponentially in America. They bought Maytag, then they bought GE appliances. So it's a really growing company. But we brought them back to little Camden, South Carolina.
So let me ask you this:
1998.
How big was Camden, South Carolina at the time?
Oh, just a couple thousand people.
So did you actually have to kind of broker that deal? Like, were you able to pick up the phone and call your local whomever to make those plans official?
See, again, here's one of these like David Letterman stories. Okay. So my husband and I are back in Camden for one of my best friend's engagement parties. And we're talking to some friends, and we're talking to some of my parents' best friends. He's like a second dad to me. And he said, he said, "What are y'all doing? You're always working in China, doing international work. So talk to us about what we're doing." We're like, very interestingly enough, we just got back from China talking to this manufacturer that we're really trying to get to come to South Carolina. We think they're really considering us. And they said, they need to come to Camden because he said, "I just invested and started this industrial park. I bought all this land, and we are trying to attract manufacturers. Bring them to Camden." So we went back to our state leaders, and we knew someone in the state. So we were in China. We called the state chamber of commerce and said, "Hey, we're in China right now talking to this big manufacturer. What kind of incentives can we work out?" Just on the cuff, like just asking. And it worked out. And we said, "Hey, what about, can we show them the Camden property? Can we push that? Because that's where I'm from. I know the people there. We have personal connections there." And it worked out.
Wow. So that must have been massive for Camden.
It was very big. It was very big for Camden. It was big for the country. I mean, because it was the first business like that to do that. We did a big story in the LA Times about us. I mean, and Ronnie and I, Ronnie and I were like 23, 24 years old.
Wow.
I mean, when we were traveling in China, they told us and they asked Ronnie to if they could put some gray in his hair because he looks too young. It's like
Interesting.
y'all look too young. You need to look older. I mean,
Right.
we looked, but we were really young. We're like,
Yeah.
okay, we're not going to make our hair gray, but we get the message. But we were, we climbed up an uphill battle there because, the elder statesmen, business people get the most respect there in China.
Right.
But we got through it, but it wasn't easy. It was tough.
That's unbelievable.
It was hard.
I'm just curious, how has Camden grown since then?
Oh, yeah, I think that, around that industrial park, other things have moved in. I think Hire has built onto that plant for a couple, several times, so that it keeps that plant keeps growing in Camden.
Unbelievable. That's such a cool
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
And to your point, it's is that entrepreneurship, or is it entrepreneurship per se, the kind of thing that you can learn in a course, or is that just some sort of a instinct where you say, oh, I have an idea, let's just put it out there and see if it works,
I think
and
it is
let's
a lot of
tell
instinct. Yeah.
yeah. And that's I love that. So
And not afraid to ask.
right,
Don't be afraid to ask. I mean,
that's
you
right.
never, I mean, there's so many times in my life where, even raising my children, everything like, what you're going to get a no. Who cares? At least ask. At least try. And I think that in my business now, my business life now, I'm like, well, at least I'm going to ask. I mean, they can say no, but I'm gonna make them say no to me.
Right. Versus assuming a no by never asking at all.
That's right. By never asking at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. So your early 20s. I mean, your
Babies.
your husband is no longer an attorney. So he already is a retired attorney. I was kind of the same, after law school, I retired. I was a retired attorney in like my mid 20s. And I love to tell people that because they would laugh at me.
He does too. He still does. It's like, I haven't gotten a W-2 since I was a lawyer.
That's right. Same, actually. No,
Yeah.
I did. I worked somewhere else after being a lawyer, but yes, exactly. And so you're working, you're building these businesses. By the way, I just to backtrack a tiny bit, you started your own PR firm, and I want to dig into these questions on purposefully, because I feel like by the time you got to building BDV, you had already started a couple businesses, which means you had some muscle, memory, you built up some kind of skills and experience. It sounds like your first business was this PR firm that you built on your own, Verg. I wonder where that name came from. So just out of curiosity for that, I mean, was that sort of like, oh, let me do this because my husband has just got a job and I need to do something with my time? Or were you really kind of saying, I want to turn this into a business? Because that was your first venture, really.
Yeah. And, I had it for a while, but for what my husband was launching on, he needed a partner and we needed to do it together. And we were, and he was traveling to China. I was like, yeah, I want to go with you.
Yeah.
So it was just an adventure for us to do together.
Right.
And I was like, let's go for it.
Yeah. And if you had a full-time job, you wouldn't have been able to travel with him. You wouldn't have been able to work together.
No.
So you've done this China deal. You do these international deals. Your husband's working on EB-5. At what point do you start to think about what would eventually become BDV Solutions? So working on this EB-3 space,
Okay.
EB-5 and EB-3 for the folks who are listening, who are obviously, many of them are immigration professionals, wildly different demographic, wildly different visa category. How did that happen where you were introduced to this whole concept of sort of the EB-3 quote unquote unskilled visa?
Right. Well, I took a big break. So I had 3 children and I stopped working to raise children. So my husband was still doing that. We ended up moving to Greenville, working, like I said, working in China during those times. It was the Wild West. It was very difficult. It was hard. And so, he was traveling a lot, and it's like, you know what? It was a lot of travel. And I was like, I'm very close to my family and they're all here in South Carolina. And so we made a major life adjustment and we sold that business. Very small. I mean, we had a couple of deals going, but kind of, wound down that business and came to Greenville, and my husband started a real estate development firm. So he was in real estate development and I was raising children. We had 3 children. And then when the third child got into school every day, I always had like a little side deal. I was always doing a little something. But when the third one was in back to going back to school, our friends, the EB-5 business changed a lot, and most of it went to Canada. So in America, there were some big lawsuits going on. There was the whole structure of EB-5 in the 90s changed, and most EB-5 business was going to Canada. Um, some of our Canada friends that were agents that were working in this business came to us and said, "Look, the Canada EB-5 business is getting full, and we need we need some employers, we need some deals in in uh, in in America. Y'all interested in getting back into it?" Well, the timing kind of worked out for us. My third child was in school now, so I was ready to, get back more into full-time work. And the real estate market was crashing in America.
Mm.
So
So this is
real estate
around
development business
this was around
about
06 to 08. Oh
so,
eight,
yep,
yeah.
06, 08. And the real estate, so we were like, okay, yeah, great. We need to look at something else because this real estate is not going so well for us now. It's going great, but not so much now. So they called us, and we kind of got back into EB-5 then. At that time, helping them, finding some deals across America because he was in real estate development. He was like, okay, I know maybe some real estate deals. We're going to bring EB-5 in. So we got back into the immigration game, but we got out of it for a while. One, he was doing real estate development. Two, I was raising children. So when we got back into it, back into EB-5. When we were on one trip to EB-5 with an agent in China, meeting some EB-5 clients, this agent was also working on some EB-3 and said, "Have you ever heard about this EB-3?" And we're like, "No, tell us about it."
Mm.
And they said, so they told us about it. We're like, "Oh, wow, we like this." So my husband's like, "Okay, Britt, I'm kind of working on this EB-5 stuff. Can you figure out EB-3?" And I was like, "Yeah." So it's just this timing. And I was like, I'm ready to start a job. He's like, "Okay." So I literally on our kitchen table started figuring out EB-3 and going out, talking to employers, talking to agents, talking to foreign nationals. How do you do this? Talking to the lawyers, and figured it out and jumped in and doing it. So it literally started from our kitchen table with me, getting back into full-time work.
What was the thing that this person wanted you to do with respect to EB-3?
Well, what happened is that they had clients lined up with, I think I can say it's the Men's Warehouse. They were going to be seamstress, and not a lot of people in America sew anymore, and
Mm.
seamstress and do alterations and
Oh,
tailoring.
interesting.
And so they had all these people signed up to be seamstresses and sewers for Men's Warehouse. And right when, the China had a long retrogression list for Chinese getting on the EB-3, right when it came time for them to be current, Men's Warehouse filed bankruptcy. And so they were like, I gotta find replacement jobs for these people. So I had all these clients. Do you think you can help us find another employer to move our clients with? They were like in desperate need. So we worked with Men's Warehouse. They went bankrupt. So what do we do now? We need to find new employers. So so that's how I was able to jump in so fast because we had clients already lined up that we just needed to find another place for them to go to, file a new labor cert and I-140 and do that all over again for them. But they had current priority dates that they could keep.
Right. So you basically had to go find new employers. Your sales pitch effectively was going to employers saying, "Hey, we have this army of people that are highly skilled in this particular craft and they want to stay. They need a place to stay. Do you need seamstresses? Do you need people like this?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. So you were
So
cold calling. I mean, you were effectively cold
Oh,
calling kind of garment
absolutely.
manufacturers or what have you, right?
Yeah.
But then you had to explain to them what an EB-3 probably is
Oh,
because
yeah.
they may not
Oh,
even
yeah.
have known.
That's right. That's right.
Interesting. And then
Lot of
that's,
education. A lot of
yeah.
education and explaining and many employers are like, "Wait a minute, this is too good to be true. Seriously? Really? They'll come here and work for me in this unskilled job?" I'm like, "Yes, they're, but let me help you and teach you how to do this. I've got skilled immigration attorneys that I can put you with, but I was there to, teach the employers and to educate them about what this program is and how to do it. So we started out the EB-3, like I said, very small, literally on our kitchen table, and it grew from there. And I was going out finding new employers, and the agents were going out recruiting new clients for us, mainly in Southeast Asia, but doing a lot more South Korea, Vietnam. But that's where we kind of started working with agents, and so they were finding the foreign nationals. We made a major pivot in the company when we decided we wanted to recruit ourselves, the foreign nationals. So we made a big major pivot. And that's one thing that I talk to people about. Being an entrepreneur, own your own business, you got to know when to pivot, do it, you know, just jump when you can jump. And we realized that there was going to be a better business model for us to recruit our own foreign nationals, really
Right.
cutting out the middleman that we didn't think was adding much value to the process. We wanted to control the message to the foreign nationals, what to expect, what not to expect, what you're obligated to do, what you can't do, making sure they spoke English, making sure that they were a good fit for the employers that we're finding. So,
Right.
so we started off doing a lot of janitorial work, janitorial jobs in industry and manufacturing in South Carolina. A lot of textile plants here, a lot of manufacturing plants that need people to clean them. So, and
Mm.
they were coming to a time where people just didn't want to do these entry level work. So they were having a really, really hard time filling these positions. So kind of worked out. It was a good entry for us. And also with chicken plants. So we started working. So the poultry industry has been familiar with that. Several big, large poultry plants here in South Carolina started that, working with poultry plants. They understood a little bit better. But I don't do poultry anymore because that is the hardest job in America. I couldn't send anybody else to work. I mean, it's
Mm.
really, really tough work. And these middle class, skilled, educated people that were coming to do this, it just was not a good fit for them to work in the
Mm.
poultry plant. We put some in there, and we have some that went there, and they excelled. I have a couple clients that went to a poultry plant, and now I know one is like a head of quality control, one's in the accounting department, but they moved up.
Wow.
They started there, you know, processing chickens, and they did so great. They moved up in the poultry plants. But overall, it's just such a tough job to put a middle class person
Yeah.
into. So I was like, the cleaning jobs fit better to our clientele. So got into that and kind of grew from there, and then went into restaurants and manufacturing and other. I do a lot of cold food production. Americans really don't like to work in cold warehouses, but
Mm.
foreign nationals are willing to do that,
Hmm.
especially, you know, just to start off their life here in America. They're willing to go work in a. We work with a frozen food manufacturer, and you know, to work in a place that's very cold. So
Hmm.
we had started placing people in places like that, warehouse work, and restaurants, fast food, as well as kitchen jobs, which really worked very well with our clientele. So that's how we really grew our EB-3 unskilled.
So just to take a quick pause, speaking of EB-3 unskilled, for immigration lawyers that do EB-3 work or any other work, I want to say thank you to the second sponsor of the show, which is of this episode, which is DocketWise. DocketWise is an immigration case management platform. So for the lawyers who do EB-3, EB-5, H-1B, you know, family immigration, you name it, humanitarian. DocketWise is a platform that has best-in-class immigration forms, customizable questionnaires for your different clients, folks coming from different countries. You can have questionnaires be in a whole list of languages to make it easy for them to upload documents and information, et cetera. Great customer service. I say this on every episode. What I really appreciate about DocketWise, you know, other than them supporting this show and the content that it creates, but they make a lot of their own content, blogs, and now they have a podcast and all sorts of content that is helpful, I think, to the immigration bar. An ebook actually that they came out with. So if you are an immigration lawyer listening to this, check out DocketWise. Link in the show notes as well, and tell them that you heard about them from the GMI Rocket Show. So just want to say that it was a good time, you know, on the
Yeah.
EB-3 pause. So thank you to them. So I'm really fascinated by this, and I want to get into sort of when BDV Solutions started to grow, but what a wonderful story that you have these people coming in, you know, working in, let's say, at the chicken farm, and then growing, excelling, and becoming head of quality assurance. Is that a common story that you have heard over the years of people
Oh,
effectively
absolutely.
coming in? And by the way, and I say this because, I mean, this isn't like major drama, but you know, the idea of calling the EB-3 workers quote unquote unskilled sometimes is a bit of a misnomer. I mean, yes, this is not a lot of it is not work that requires a PhD, you know, a college diploma, right? But it does require obviously skill. I mean, especially if you want to be good at it. But I
Done
think
every job right. Yeah.
correct every job. But
Yeah.
I think people also people interpret it to say that the individuals are unskilled, and I think it's a really important reminder to say that, you know, a lot of folks that work in, I mean, we see this across the immigration, you have cab drivers that were doctors back in the
Oh, don't
country,
you remember stories like that
all
all the
this kind of
time?
a thing. So was it relatively common for you to have these folks come in, and yes, they're starting as cleaners or seamstresses, or, working in the kitchen, washing dishes, or working in a poultry factory, but then of course, they have so much potential, they have so much drive, and they end up like, do you follow those stories at all? Have you seen that
Absolutely.
many
See it
times?
all the time. See it all the time. We have one person right here in Greenville started off as a food prep worker at a high-end restaurant in town, very, very popular restaurant here in Greenville, South Carolina, and started off, making chicken salad and making tea and coffee and kitchen, food prep work. She's now the head pastry chef there.
Wow.
And so she's just done fantastic. But we see that all the time. We have one of our most famous clients started working in a McDonald's, worked for McDonald's. She was from Brazil, worked for McDonald's in San Diego for a franchise there that we work with, worked there, applied. She was an attorney in Brazil, and she loved to cook, and she loves Julia Child. She went on to the Julia Child Challenge show on the Food Network, and she won the damn show.
Wow.
She won it. She could have not participated in that show. They were calling her saying, "Oh," she sent in a tape. They said, "We want you to, apply. We want you to be on the show." They said, but she needed a green card, and she didn't have her green card yet. She had already started working at McDonald's, but she didn't have her green card yet. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, my dream. I mean, I've been invited to the show," because the winner of the show gets to go to Paris to study at Cordon Bleu, and but she needed a green card to be on the show. And then the next week, her green card comes in
Wow.
from her 485. She gets it. Her employer's like, "Yeah, go take a little time off, go do the show." She did the show and she won. And she is fabulous. She's fabulous.
Oh
We
my
have a
God.
great video about her and her story. But yeah, so that's the kind of people that we recruit. And this is why I wanted to be in control of recruiting the people
Mm.
of the foreign nationals myself. I didn't want to leave it to anybody else. I want to control that. So we we are recruiting foreign nationals that can do things like this. Become the head pastry chef, win a Food Network show, the Julia Child Challenge. But we see it all the time. They're moving up in the company, becoming supervisors, becoming regional managers in these companies. A lot of our cleaning companies, we have several people that started off, cleaning offices, at night or during the day, and they've moved up to regional managers, supervisors, supervising for the next group of EB-3 people that come in, and they're supervising them now
Right.
and teaching them. So it's just great to see that story.
That
But
must be so
starting off with that
inspiring.
unskilled. Yeah.
It,
But
it,
and they're so loyal to these employers because first of all, they're saying, "I couldn't have this green card. My family couldn't be here and having this green card where we don't have to worry about any more renewals. I don't have to keep going to school anymore. I can travel now because I have a green card." So they're very loyal to these companies and very grateful for sponsoring them for this opportunity. So yeah, they start the job at McDonald's and they become a manager, but they start that
Mhm.
job, in these restaurants, and they're very, very loyal and very thankful to the employers for giving them the opportunity that they wouldn't have had if they didn't sponsor them for this unskilled position. But these are skilled, smart people, hardworking people that are willing and able to do the work and show up to work every day. I'll tell you, we have several restaurants that came to us during COVID, and they said, "Look, when we started bringing back people to work, the Americans didn't want to come, but your foreign nationals, they came." Well, one, they were hungry. They wanted to make sure that they're, I mean, not hungry, they're hungry for work. They're ready to
Right.
work. They're
Right.
ready
Right.
to do this. And, and, just the work ethic of the immigrant is amazing. And she said, "Oh, our restaurants stayed open right after COVID when people were getting PPP money and didn't want to go back to work. Our people went back to work and saved
Mhm.
many of these restaurants,
Wow.
and kept them going."
So it sound and so I'm assuming business was thriving. I mean, this sounds, first of all, incredible, and also I'm sure inspiring for you, for the team. I mean, to hear these stories, it sort of keeps you coming back to work every day, right? To know that you can
Oh
continue
yeah.
to, help these people, and also it's a direct positive impact on American economy, on the American society, on downtown areas. I mean, all the restaurants here in New York City that were continuing to stay afloat during COVID, especially when we were hit pretty bad. I mean, you reckon people maybe don't realize it, but especially when you work in the immigration space, you got to look around the kitchen, the wait staff. I mean, most people were not born here, for the
That's
most
right.
part.
Yeah.
And we cannot take that for granted. So the business is going well. At what point did you start to, and obviously BDV was and continues to be around, but I mean, since or even around COVID, which was pretty recent, has been around for some time. At what point did you start to think about sort of future and growth? Because I mean, I'm not giving anything away. BDV was acquired by, or I guess I don't know if acquired is the right word, but received
Totally. We're still, yeah.
right.
We sold just
But
part of
like
the business.
a major
Yeah.
stake was taken by Astara Capital, which is a private equity firm, and so that's a big change, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about sort of maybe how that, to the extent that you
Mhm.
can, how that conversation came about? Maybe where were you and your husband and your team at in
Yeah.
terms of the business to say that this is the right thing to do?
Yeah. Like I said, I had worked in entrepreneurship on a small level, started at the kitchen table, grew this business, worked out of the house, worked, out of my basement first, then moved into, worked at the kitchen table. Then we made an office in the basement. And so I was working down there for a while, and then moved into an office downtown, and we grew, and we're about 8 people. But as we grew, and we were under the weight of our own success, is because when people started getting the green cards, we created a very, very big community, which is, we almost have like 80 something thousand people in our Facebook group of a community. And what we wanted to create was, we want to be in this business and be more transparent, more community driven, talk to people, make sure that we're nurturing and helping our foreign nationals the whole way through this journey, because you have so many questions. And it was a different way than many of the agents did business. We were out there, we were on Facebook Live, answering questions, doing this and that. But so when the people that we recruited on this Facebook group started getting their green cards, which, takes a year or two, and they were working, and then they were sharing their success stories, and then they were bringing friends, we just had exponential growth, because our success was breeding success, because foreign nationals wanted to hear from other foreign nationals the success they had. And
Right.
we were doing it very publicly through our Facebook group, through media, through marketing. And that was part of, my background, and wanting to do this very
Yeah.
publicly, to share the success of people, let people tell their stories, even the good, bad, and ugly. Share your story. They're all real. And we wanted the foreign national to have a safe place to come and ask questions, and understand what is an RFE? Oh my gosh, what's an audit? Being scared and saying, how long did it take you? They want to communicate with each other. They wanted to create this community. So that's what BDV provided, but it provided tremendous growth. So we needed to hire a lot more people. I needed an HR person. I needed more people in finance, more people in business development. And it was just growing and growing. And we worked very, very hard to come. I mean, we were a bootstrap business. We did it all. I mean, I did everything in the company. My husband and I did it. We hired a couple people. We knew that to take it to the next level, it needed to be more professionalized, institutionalized. And so having a partner like Astara coming in with their experience, with their know-how of how to grow a company from really a mom and pop type, husband wife operation, that we were very successful. We were very, very proud of our reputation, of the foreign nationals we were recruiting. Our employees were happy, but we just knew we were on this growth path that I wasn't totally committed to run for the rest of my life.
Right.
Maybe it goes back to what we were saying earlier. I did it. I understood it. I was ready for something new. So now I'm in a new chapter. We hired a new CEO, and now I'm chairwoman of the board. But I just knew to take it to that next level. We wanted to talk about, going to other visa categories, which we have. So right now we're more than an EB-3 unskilled visa company. Right now, today, we have a division that through an M&A, we have a J1 teacher program. So we have a J1 teacher program, and we just did an M&A, and we do H2B as well right now. And we're looking at other visa categories. For that growth, I know what I can do, and I know what I can't do. I know that I built this company with my heart and soul and everything we had in it. I mean, I put everything. My kids know, they know it's so funny. They're like, oh, you feeling that? What are you working on today, Mom? 485s or I-140s, or, they know all these. I was like, oh God, this is so sad. Y'all know everything about immigration business. Y'all know all the acronyms.
That's
USCIS.
great.
What are you looking at? Is that adjustment of status, AOS, or is it a consular case? We lived this business day in and day out. We're ready to take a break.
Yep.
We're ready to put it in the hands of people that we can help more companies, more businesses, more foreign nationals. And I knew to do that, we needed to bring in bigger investment, and people that knew how to grow a company at that stage. My heart's there in it, and I will always be in BDV. But very excited about the new leadership that we have there to grow, so we can help more people, because we see this is so needed, and we see that American businesses are relying more and more on immigrant, foreign national labor to grow, because Americans, we're not growing, we're not having kids, so we got to grow somehow. So we see this as a great opportunity to help more businesses, more schools with the J1 visa to grow that. So it was just time.
Yeah. Did you reach out? I mean, does the conversation start by you as the company saying, okay, we're interested in finding some investors? I'm assuming you had inbound interest all the time. I feel like investors have a way of finding businesses that are flourishing and sort of
Well,
seeing where
this
they
goes
are.
back to a couple of stories I've already told today. It's like, we're looking in your network. So
Right.
my husband was very close to some people in PE and venture capital and
Mm.
investment banking in New York City. He shares. We're still friends with them. We'd come and visit them. So we kind of shared our growing business with them, and they're like, "Oh man, y'all are ready. You've reached
Mm.
this certain level of success, that if you want to sell or you want to bring an investor, I think y'all are ready to do that." So we were introduced by a friend of a friend. So the leader at Astara Capital was a friend of one of our friends in New York City that was in the business.
Oh, wow. That's so cool, because I met Astara Capital a while back, and I remember after this transaction happened, it was so it made so much sense, because a lot of the businesses in their portfolio were companies that presumably could
Yeah.
use EB-3 unskilled workers,
And that's
and
one thing that I was looking at too, because we
yeah,
had the southeastern market. We were in the southeastern market. I was looking for a partner because I wanted to go after bigger enterprises. I wanted to.
mm,
I'm trying to find the best jobs I can for these foreign nationals, where they
right,
can really succeed, where they can move up, and not be in a dead end job or be in a job that they can't really move up in. And I knew we needed to have bigger companies. We needed bigger. We also needed to grow. We had Chris Richardson that came on. And you're a friend of Chris's, and I think he's been on your show. He was
yep,
a big part of our growth story, when we brought him on, and really understanding that we needed a bigger government relations team, because we needed to be able to have a good relationship with Department of Labor, Department of State, USCIS, to know who we needed to talk to when we had a case that was stuck, or a case that we had, to advocate for changes in all the immigration system that makes sense, for America and for foreign nationals. So that was part of that growth story too. So we knew we wanted to grow our government relations team, and Chris did that. But yeah, so it was kind of organic in a way, how it just
mhm.
happened. But we're really happy where we are now.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And to your point, I think goes to show that building a network is really crucial. Putting yourself in
Hmm.
an opportunity, in a position where opportunities, yes, it might feel like luck that you happen to know this person, but like I said earlier, and I truly believe this, you make your own luck. You can't just sit at home and wait for people to knock on your door and give you opportunities. You have to be out there. You have to share things about yourself. You have to be open and honest with what are you going through? What are you thinking about? What are you, hoping to achieve? And then you plant a seed in someone else's head. And if they like you, they'll sort of go to bat for you and say, oh, you know what? I know somebody who does this, or like, have you
Yeah,
thought about it this way? And all of these things accumulate, and sort of lead
and don't be
to
afraid to ask the question, and don't be afraid to be told no. No, you're going to be told no, and then you'll learn from that no, though. So why no? Let me figure out what can I change? Can I do it? So don't be afraid to ask the question. And lots of times it's like, don't dream, do. Don't dream,
Mhm.
do it.
And you know what? By the way, sorry, and I don't want to, I don't want to turn this around on me, but it just reminded me, so Laborless, the software company that we run, we get no's. It happens, right?
Yeah.
Even a company that reaches out and shows interest, they eventually kind of the interest wanes for whatever reason.
Hmm.
And whenever somebody, a prospect, does tell me no, I always follow up and say, hey, thank you, of course, no problem, no pressure. I mean, I'm not. I want this to be the right fit for you. If it's not, or not
Sure.
right now, but I always say, but if you don't mind, can you share with me why no? I like to
That's
ask
great.
them. And half
Hmm.
the time they don't respond because they're
Yeah.
they're busy. But
There goes. Do you still hear him in my?
yep.
Hold
Oh
on.
yeah, I still hear you.
We had to have one technical thing. So
There you go.
sorry about
Yeah,
that.
it'll be perfect, and this will be edited out in the audio. But for people watching live, now you know it's
Sorry.
live. No, it's okay. And so when I ask them why, a few people, sometimes people will actually respond to me and say, well, we're actually going through a whole big fundamental change in the firm, and we can't. And you think to yourself, I could have easily beat myself up over it and said, oh, the product's not good for them or something. But
Right.
the no had nothing to do with me. They're the law firm's partner is like going through something and they're splitting the firm up.
Oh, it's
Like there are
always
a
best to
million
know
and one
why.
scenarios,
Yeah.
right? Other times the no is the cost, right?
Yeah.
And then I can come back and say, well, what about if we work something together? And then you can
Yeah.
turn that no into a yes. So to your point, it's so important if you get a no, well, first of all, put yourself in a position to hear a no, right? By asking, by offering. If you do get a no, don't be afraid to ask why. Many people are more than willing to share because, as long as it feels that you're genuinely curious and you want their feedback, they'll share their feedback. So I wanted to share, we had a couple comments. This was from a while back, but Seth Finberg says it's all about the worldwide pants for EB-3 immigration future. He said it's an inside David Letterman joke. I grew up watching Conan O'Brien. I wish I watched David Letterman. I didn't, but I love him
Conan
now.
once started off as a writer for David Letterman.
That's
but David
right.
Letterman's production company is called Worldwide Pants.
Oh, is that okay?
He
There
loved
you go.
David Letterman. Loved alliteration. So he liked how words sounds, and he liked
Interesting.
worldwide. So he loved alliteration. So Worldwide Pants. Yep, what's the name of his
That's so
production
brilliant.
company?
That's so funny. Thanks, Seth.
And,
And then Lachi says, "What an inspiring story. Thank you for sharing, Britt." So thank you,
oh, of
Lachi,
course.
for your comment.
Thank you.
So Britt, to get back to this, so now you've had Astara come in, you've met them, you guys have gone through diligence, et cetera. Obviously, it's a good fit, and you go through this, I guess, majority stake investment, et cetera. Can you share a little bit about, I don't know, what was it like after that, right? I mean, this is sort of, for many people, the dream, the goal, right? They start a business, they end up having some liquidity event where they can take money off the table. They've worked so hard, blood, sweat, and tears for years. Now you have to relax at some point. I mean, you have to live your life. It doesn't mean you're totally off sitting on the beach drinking mojitos.
Well, it wasn't relaxing. We had more work than ever. I mean, but they came in, they gave us great advice. They made us do things that we should have done a long time ago. They're like, okay, you need to hire many more people. You're trying to do too much to too little people. It's like, you're right. So we hired up. We, created more departments and got more focus. So they just came in with some great advice about, because we're such a bootstrap company, we're trying to do it all. And we're just those entrepreneurs just like, okay, we'll just work harder, put more time into it. But that wasn't always smart work, now thinking about it. So we grew our team tremendously from at that point. So that was great advice and great ways to do that. They got us, to invest more on technology, to get where we needed on technology, because they understood that investment was very worth it. It got us in touch with and partnered with some really great people that were going to help us with that technology. I'm not a tech person, so we really needed help there. But so they gave us great advice, but it was busier than ever because we were growing so much, and we were just in this big growth pattern because we were having so many green cards at that point being approved, and we were getting new employers, so we were just growing like crazy. So it's great. So at first it was more work than I'd ever done. We started becoming much more data driven and report oriented. I'm like, oh my gosh, they want to report for freaking everything. But then I realized, man, I'm learning so much from these reports. But I would tell you, when you start, they want to report about everything. Well, starting off as a small family business, we knew instinctively a lot of things.
Right.
Like, we know where our cash flow is. And my husband was very good. It's like, I can guess, I know where we're, but to see it and these reports, these monthly reports, and quarterly reports. So we really spent the first 2 years just creating reports after reports, which in hindsight was really needed, but we were just too busy running the company than to do report. But now we can use these reports to watch trends, look at things before they come, really analyze and know more about the company by doing that. But that was something that was just not in our corporate culture, was report after report. But they were needed and meaningful, but it was a lot of work just getting all that together. So just really making ourselves as an industry corporate standards that we needed to be at it for a company our size.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like such a perfect next step. I mean, I'm picturing it as well. I started my career. I mean, I should say I started my professional life working as an intern in college at Bear Stearns, which doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
And then my team was actually acquired by JP Morgan. So I spent a couple summers at JP Morgan. And so I look back on that and I think how lucky I am to have worked at such a large institution purely from the perspective of seeing how organized you have to be in order to run such a large organization. So folder structures, I mean,
Oh,
like you said, reports, hierarchies of employees that make sense, that are there for a purpose.
document
And
security, everything,
yeah,
like all of that
absolutely.
stuff that's not a part of running our business and where's my heart is, but it's things that you need to do. So there's so many things in a corporation that, God, that is so not fun to me. I do
Right.
not want to do that. I mean, oh, please. I mean, but
Exactly.
it's so necessary. And of
Yeah.
course, it's needed, especially for a growing company. But it's stuff that did not excite me. And I really, honestly, just didn't care about. I'm like, ugh. I like the people part. I like making matches, seeing success stories, building. I mean, we building the corporate culture just at BDV of just really caring about our employees, paying them well, rewarding them well. That part of creating that corporate culture was very important. I mean, that's what I really like doing. But the reports and governance and all that stuff was not exciting to me, but well
Absolutely.
needed, and it's all there and in place now. So it was needed to grow really.
Exactly, because now you're bringing in people that don't just instinctively know the cash flow. They don't
Right.
instinctively know the clients. I mean, for
Hmm.
you have a lot of this in your head, and so it's not necessary. But you bring in people; they need to have insight into other parts of the company. How do you do
That's
that?
right.
Reports. I mean, it is what it
Yes.
is, and so
Yes. Yep.
so I love that. I think it's a really good reminder that when institutional investors come in, yes, the money is important, but if you really care, if you started the business, you care about the longevity of the business, whether or not you step away, bringing in institutional investors should also mean, I think, bringing in more than money, right? It should be
And
bringing in their
institutional practices.
expertise. Correct.
Practices. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. And they got us there. And that's what, yeah. In our, we upped our accounting system, everything just to make it. We really, like the first 2 years of just making sure that our foundation was built so we were able to grow and go into more
Mhm.
visa categories and help more employers, help more foreign nationals. And so that's where we are. And they're ready for that big growth explosion, which we're really excited about. But I'm glad to be in the chairperson seat as I watch that go on.
So let me ask you, I guess, one more question on this. What do you like? What advice would you give to? I mean, law firms are different because law firms, like, at least for now, aren't able to get sort of outside investment, right? Just because of ownership
Right, unless you're
regulations
like,
around
was
who
it
can own.
unless you're in Arizona? Is it
Yeah, Utah. Yeah, if
Utah?
you're in the
Yeah.
sandbox states, yes, you
Yeah.
can do that and potentially, but for the most part, but there are a lot of other companies. There are tech companies. I mean, I own a tech company in the immigration space. There are a lot of other people building very interesting businesses in the space. Do you recommend people think about investment, people think about exit opportunities, or do you think that the industry is more kind of, build a business that will help people, that will, provide a service? Don't think about exiting from the beginning. If you get there, great. If you don't get there, also fine.
I think every business. We talk to a lot of entrepreneurs now, and so Ronnie and I both are serving on some boards and committees for entrepreneurships and for startups and everything. And we say it all the time: don't start a company to sell. You will
Mm,
not be a good company. You
mm,
start a company because you're passionate about it. You start a company because you know that you can build a good business. You got to love the company that you're building, and if it comes to a point where it is attractive for outside investment or selling, great. But I think it's a bad idea to start a company thinking you're going to sell it, because I'm going to tell you, the people that are buying businesses, they want to buy businesses that were created because they're just good damn businesses.
mm.
That you figured out something. So if you can figure out that niche, and I think that the immigration space is just yearning for a lots of creative ideas. Um, Many times, and even probably with you've experienced, they're like, wait a minute, you have a business in immigration, especially when you're talking to people that have been in America for a long time. They're like, wait a minute, there's a business there. Foreign nationals will really pay you to do that. I mean, that's a real business, and they don't. It is, and we need to be creative in how we can help bring these two sides of the equation that need to be brought together. It might be through technology, creativity, and just in a way that I love seeing these mergers and acquisitions, because I think we're going to get more transparent, bigger operations that can really meet the need that's out there. Because right now it's just very fragmented.
And so you got, and so since the Astara investment, obviously BDV has also, you mentioned, invested into, or I guess acquired the J1 company. So you're branching out into that, H2Bs, et cetera, which is really exciting. So,
And they also bought, and Argo Visa that does the
right. Oh, that's right. Of course, Argo Visa, where Chris
Yeah.
Richardson was.
Yeah.
He was on the show to talk about that. So
yeah. Love that company. Love that company.
Me too. I think just a brilliant idea. And you think like, okay, is it a niche business? Yes, but that's the beauty. And actually, I think that, look, I don't have any, I mean, at least this is my perspective. The immigration business, if you will, especially if we're talking about US, it is niche. I mean, all things considered, this is not a $500 billion, and it just isn't, right? But it is still quite big, and there's a lot of room for specialization. There's a lot of room for high quality services. For this is a sensitive time in people's lives. It's a time when attention to detail is really important. It's a time when professionalism is important, and so if there's an opportunity to provide a really good specialized service for, like you said, teachers that want to come in, or for individuals that are coming in on unskilled labor, or farm workers, or non-farm seasonal workers, whatever it might be, like we have to sort of do what we can to provide as good of a service to those individuals as possible, and that's business. I mean, that is what the business is. So I love that. I'm really excited to continue to watch what BDV is continue to do and the future. As a final question, I was going to ask you, so what is Britt 2.0? But I think you've started so many businesses and I don't even know what version this is, but what is the next version of, now that you've sort of stepped down, you're a chairwoman. What are you working on what are you excited about these days, after sort of?
Well, I'm really excited to sit at the chair position, to watch the company grow, advise how we can grow, to be smart, to put these two people together, the employment needs and for our national needs, and helping schools as well, and their foreign exchange programs. But I've been advised to take a year off, not to jump anything too fast. So I've been traveling a lot lately. I also have a girls' camp up in the mountains of North Carolina, and this is the first summer. I was been there for the past 2 days. I wish I could show you. I got like dirt under my fingernails right now from digging and planting up there. So I love that part of my life. It's something that we've had for about 6 years, but I have not been able to spend as much time up at the girls' camp as I would like to. So this is the first summer. I'm going to be up there all summer long. So that's going to give me the opportunity to do that, and to I love camp. I love being in single gender camp. So a girls' camp in a traditional camp in the mountains of beautiful North Carolina, Camp Glen Arden for girls. So I'll be up there more. But we're also really looking at our next chapter in doing some impacts through a family foundation. So we are really devoting our lives to helping entrepreneurs. So I'm very involved in a program here, helping the underserved community and being entrepreneurs, that sometimes they just don't know, what's the right thing. They need a network to get around. So there's a great entrepreneurship program here in Greenville that we are help funding and trying to grow, and going to mentor some entrepreneurs in that way. So I'm really excited about that and want to grow that.
That's awesome. That sounds so wonderful. Well, good luck. I mean, first of all, camping is so fun, and working with your hands is keeps you young. So I
love it. I love it.
I need to
I was ready to get out. I've been in an office chair long enough. I mean, I'm an active person, so I'm really excited about kind of that next stage of life as well.
Well, I'll wrap this conversation up so you can get off the chair and go, go
back to camp and dig
flowers. Exactly. So
clean cabins.
Thank you, Britt. This has been such a wonderful conversation, so inspiring. I've learned a lot. I know our listeners have learned a lot. Congratulations to you, and your husband, and your whole team on all the success. And I mean, from my perspective, obviously BDV is not going anywhere. If anything, it's growing tremendously. So I think the industry is excited to continue to watch where the company goes. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Grow. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
And episode 100. What a
I
momentous
know
one.
it.
So I appreciate you for
Congratulations.
doing that. Thank you. Thank you, Britt. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
What an amazing episode. I want to say thank you to Lex Reception again for being the main sponsor of this episode. Just as a quick recap, Lex Reception is a legal intake, reception, and client support service for immigration law firms. They provide you with 24/7 legal answering specialists, so you don't have to worry about missing calls or emails from prospective or existing clients as an immigration law firm. They'll reach out to folks for you. They integrate with all of your tools, Clio, Practice Panther, LawPay, and others, so that you sort of Lex Reception works into your workflow, or fits into your workflow, I should say. And again, for listeners of the GMI Rocket Show, you get $250 off your first month of service with Lex Reception if you use the link in the show notes, or just reach out to them and just remind them that you heard about them from the GMI Rocket Show. So thank you to Lex Reception. Such a big thank you to Britt. Again, what an amazing episode. So inspiring. I feel like I'm invigorated now. I want to go back. I'm going to get off this call or off this episode, and I don't know, go do something in my business, reach out to somebody else. And I hope everyone else who's out there listening, watching, feels inspired to do, whatever it is that you're working on, whether it's your career or a company. So huge thanks to Britt. Huge thanks to all of you for listening. I hope to see you on the next episode. Of course, in the meantime, have a wonderful weekend. Be safe and peace out.